Since my Miss Bellum video, I've gotten remarks like, "Oh, you must be really upset they got rid of Hello Nurse from the Animaniacs reboot." And to that I say, As I stated in that video, Miss Bellum served a purpose, a source of exposition and moral support to the girls, while at the same time providing comedic foil to the mayor. Also, she did have her own unique gag in that you never saw her face, and her neck was ever shifting in length, like a sexy trombone. Hello Nurse? Yeah, not so much. Just starting with the fact that mayors do have assistants, and psychiatrists who specialize in office visits don't usually have on-site nurses as far as my knowledge goes. Oh, and nurses are not secretaries. Neither likes it when you confuse the two. Also, did you realize just how little Hello Nurse is actually in the show? She shows up in episode 1, and then 5, and then 7, and then disappears until episode 50, the Christmas special, where she has a whopping 1 line of dialogue.
But why bring them presents when Santa will do?
And then another 11 episode drought, and then she plays a witch in the Macbeth sketch. They don't even let her talk on her own.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble.
Bibbidi bobbidi boo.
This is it. This is your childhood. A whopping 19 minutes. What are you, a gadfly? Not even enough for an actual episode. And that includes Yakko's wish, which is by far the most time she's spent on screen. Also non-speaking roles and background cameos. But not parts where she is clearly meant to be a different character, like the flight attendant.
Would you like anything?
Perhaps a sedative?
Huh? I don't get it.
Go away.
Or the Prime Minister.
The king approaches!
I heard.
Excuse me, Prime Minister.
Even though this is probably the one episode where she spends the most screen time with the Warners.
Your Majesty, now would be a good time to greet the people with your address.
Dresses would be Dot's department.
That's because in this instance, she is taking the role of a Miss Bellum type, playing the straight man.
Your Majesty, if I may.
I wish you would.
Now, if we position our army on the northern border here, and a battalion of tanks on the left flank here, we can force the attackers into this narrow valley. What do you think, Your Majesty?
So Hello Nurse actually has the most lines when she's not Hello Nurse.
Lower me safely to the floor!
The problem starts with the fact that Hello Nurse is less of an actual character and more of an archetype, at least in the start of the series. Remember, Animaniacs was an homage to old school vaudeville, Hollywood, and classic animation in general. And Hello Nurse's closest analog comes from old MGM shorts. I'm of course speaking of Red.
Oh, Daddy.
At the time, Red and the Wolf were a fresh new retelling of a classic Red Riding Hood story with a subversive twist that set it apart from its competitors.
Chuck and Buster Badger, Horace Hedgehog and Scott Skunk and Barney Bear and Tommy Monkey and Dorothy Duck.
Like I said, Red proved to be so popular that they started putting her in other cartoons, doing pretty much the same thing.
Oh, Wolfie, ain't you the one? Oh, Wolfie, oh, Wolfie.
Soon, this specific character started showing up in other studios' cartoons and became shorthand for attractive females in slapstick, as opposed to just a clone of the main character with a bow and eyelashes.
She's married to Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, what a lucky girl.
You can find a handful of proto-Hello Nurses in Tiny Toons, and even in the inevitable Animaniacs imitators to follow. So Hello Nurse at this point is not really her own character. She's more like an appendix of cartoons as a whole. Sure, she can be nice to look at, but she can become problematic.
I don't know what to say, the monkeys won't do.
For a nickel, I'll give you a clue.
Now give the writers of the original series credit. They knew this type of behavior was anachronistic even at the moment they were writing it.
You said sister.
All He-Man detectives call women sister in the politically unaware decades preceding women's liberation.
And yeah, they were emulating older cartoons, specifically the ones starring this rapist. I bet you forgot he even fakes a suicide.
for you.
Now, the Warner Brothers never tried anything as bad as that. And for the most part, Hello Nurse seems to humor them as if they were little kids.
Why don't you cute little kids follow me?
Even though they've been around since the 1930s. And she's been around since the 1930s. Huh. But what I really find problematic is her name and how it relates to her profession.
If I introduced her to you, what would be the proper greeting?
Hello, nurse.
Now, it was revealed by creator and showrunner Tom Ruegger that her real name is Eloise Nurz, N-U-R-Z. But of course, the meta meaning of the name is that Hello Nurse is a greeting, like hello doll, or sup babe, or a pleasure to meet you, sugar tits.
Please save me.
Hello, Harp. She's a dream.
She's a princess.
She's a woman with a harp stuck to her back, boys.
I feel the whole sexy nurse trope should be re-examined. I mean, it's absolutely likely that you'll find someone who serves you in real life attractive, but you should probably refrain from acting on those impulses. Even if it's just realizing that their continued employment relies on them being nice to you, and maybe that your game is not as tight as you think it is.
Do you come with a car?
Oh, you.
Do you come with the car?
Oh, you.
Of course, there are those who will exploit this social dynamic, particularly in the medical profession, which can require a high amount of physical intimacy.
So the greeting hello nurse is kind of like the equivalent of saying, hey baby, you gotta touch me if you want to keep this job. And there's the fact that the show does take place at a movie studio, and we are still in the middle of a tremendous pushback to a lot of systemic sexual abuse that many women have experienced over the decades. So yeah, I'm all for just taking a minute to think about how this interaction should be depicted, and if it's really worth the 14 minutes of entertainment I would get out of it.
Oh no, it is impolite to be that personal. Wakko?
I disagree.
Oh, and by the way, I don't want to give them too much credit for insinuating that they got rid of Hello Nurse because they were trying to be PC. The show points out that they basically slashed the cast to just the Warners, Pinky and the Brain, Ralph, and Scratch and Sniff.
Didn't the show used to have more characters?
There could be tons of reasons for this, like budget. Every one of these voice actors is now worth way more than they were in 1993, especially Frank Welker, who is contractually obligated to be no more than 100 feet from a golf course and or airplane at any given moment. And I think he has like 10 lines in the whole season.
We're doing this thing where we don't waste our first lines.
Make sure it's funny.
Perfect!
Also, there's the fact that Tom Ruegger is not involved in the reboot. Paul Rugg has actually been very vocal about this. So that means no Mr. Director, along with characters created by other talented contributors, including Sherry Stoner's incomparable Slappy Squirrel, which is by far my biggest disappointment in the new series.
Skippy, I've learned that looks aren't everything. It's the beauty in your heart that's really important.
Gee, Aunt Slappy, you sound like an after-school special.
You're right, I take it all back.
Which leaves me a bit conflicted because from what I've seen, there is some really great talent on this new show, including the head character designer, who's on top of just being amazing, has no qualms drawing some really sexy ladies. Also, Disney owns Hulu now, so who knows what the hell's going on. What I'm saying is that, yes, there are aspects of Hello Nurse that have not aged well. Of course, they did try to course correct in the later half of the original series.
She's the woman of the year, independent, a career. There's not a thing that she couldn't do.
They kind of went a little too far into Mary Sue territory, though.
Oh, she's alert, she's aware, she's got legs like a stair and 157 IQ. She has several PhDs, speaks fluent Japanese.
Of course, the joke is that she's not really all of those things, and probably just a really nice person.
If she's not everything that we've said, then may lightning strike us dead.
Towards the end of this series, they even tried to give her her own catchphrase.
No. He's gone. My boss has vanished.
Would you do that no thing again?
No.
I love that.
It was only in this one short and in the Star Wars episode, which is actually a Pinky and the Brain episode.
Gee, I don't know. That looks more like a bread maker.
No. I have one of those. Maybe it's a crock pot or a space heater.
No, it's a
floor polisher.
Huh? Oh, sure. That's it.
I can't tell you how pissed I was that after buying all the Animaniacs DVDs and not seeing this one on any of them.
May the nurse be with you.
Then, of course, you have Wakko's Wish, which at the time was the final farewell to the Animaniacs, and I think a good place to leave off most of these characters.
Except for the mime, that is.
Hello Nurse basically just flat out says what she wants.
I would wish that every single person would appreciate me only for my mind. Because I've got a mean IQ of 192. They want me for my looks, but never for my books, so love me for my brain.
Hello, brain.
I am not amused.
Then I'll be happy.
And she gets her wish after a fortunate mishap gives her opportunity to market Scratch and Sniff's newest concoction.
It just came to me, from who knows where.
Hello, nurse.
Oh yeah, I guess he's trying to create some sort of cure-all in this alternate reality, which I guess is kind of the same thing as being a shrink.
Hey, step up and try our elixir. It's good for what hurts.
Whatever ails you, it can fix her.
And it's great on desserts.
So in this, Hello Nurse ends up being a CEO. In the new show, she goes off to Doctors Without Borders.
I should have joined Doctors Without Borders with Hello Nurse.
But you know, there is a third option. The Animaniacs comics ran from 1999 to 2000 under the DC imprint, lasting a year after the original series ended. It was more the same, except for the parodies were a little bit more niche, and the content was a bit riskier than what was on TV. This freedom allowed the creation of Agent from Hubba, the headquarters of undercover, buoyantly beautiful agents. Turns out Hello Nurse is actually a highly trained secret agent who uses her disguise as a studio nurse because it gives her access to reporter, forensics cop, military staff. Okay, so obviously the character as Hello Nurse came first, and this is just an excuse to have gratuitous violence and sexy poses in your fun gag comics for kids. The whole Agent Nurse parody is a send-up to the environment of 90s comics at the time, including heavy inking, shoulder pads on one shoulder, and the mandatory Evil Dead 2 reference.
Groovy.
I will say I like all the different nurse names that the organization came up with, like Cheerio Nurse for the overly polite British agent, Aloha Nurse for the mellow Hawaiian agent, Konnichiwa Nurse for the studious Japanese agent, and Foxy Nurse for the sassy black agent. And then there's Agent Hapless, who is kind of the team punching bag, and, good for them. Hello Nurse herself is a bit of an edgelord in this. Her disposition is a complete 180 from her day job persona. She does not even hesitate to fire on kittens. Sure, they were evil kittens, but still.
Gee, I don't know anybody who could firebomb kittens.
Here, let me.
Perhaps her grimdark outlook comes from the fact that her greatest nemesis is her twin sister, Nurse Doom, who she has spent her entire life competing with. As soon as Hello Nurse was inducted into Hubba, an organization dedicated to protecting the world, Nurse Doom dedicated her life to conquering it. Or destroying it. She's just kind of insane.
All right.
Hello Nurse's Rogues Gallery also includes an actually really well-designed cat villain and her pet geek, which I don't know if they know means what it means. And a Goldfinger knockoff, who in one issue actually peppers the Warner Brothers lot with explosive Easter Island figures, resulting in Hello Nurse having to disable the explosives as covertly as possible. It's actually kind of fun seeing her inner dialogue as she's trying to keep up appearances as the regular old Hello Nurse. So this is by far the most interesting development that actually adds layers to her character, but probably not the one the original creators had anticipated. Kind of like how Red Riding Hood became Red. The idea alone could have been its own series, and in fact, has been. But I do like to think this is the canon explanation for her disappearance from the new series. Once the Warners were gone, she moved on with her spy career. It would also explain her showing up in different jobs around the world and her superhuman strength.
Hello, French nurse.
Never mind.
I bet she even time traveled once or twice. If they brought her back next season as a grizzled doan with like a eye patch and a cyborg arm, I would just totally pop off. But if you were to ask me how I would bring Hello Nurse back as Hello Nurse, I guess I would just give her something to do and, dial back on the blatant violations of personal space. You know what I liked? This one cartoon where all three, Ralph, Scratch-a-Sniff, and Hello Nurse, try to catch the Warners. It's the only time we really see all three of them together, and I wish they had done more shorts like that. And there was a show called Hysteria, right? Which is geared more towards social studies. Let Hello Nurse do something like that, except, like health advice. In closing, you can have an Animaniacs series without Hello Nurse, as evidenced by the fact that they did most of the time. She appeared so sparsely and wasn't really integral to any of the plots of the cartoons that she was featured in. But I wouldn't mind seeing her in the new show, especially if they were willing to address some of the issues head on, which they have shown they can do. Which leads me to believe that you can chalk up her exclusion to red tape more than anything. Speaking of red tape, it looks like the internet has really taken a liking to Nora, the new antagonistic CEO of the studio. So there's that.
Any interest in mentoring a young future CEO?
No, I'm a firm believer in pulling up the ladder behind me.
And if she's not your type, well, too bad, I guess. Do you really need gratification from every female cartoon character?
So get us wet.
Mwah! Good night, everybody. Also, there is a show called Hysteria, right? Which is geared towards social studies. Let Hello Nurse do something like that, except, like health advice. Like the dinosaurs that told you to brush your teeth. Bet you forgot all about those little shits, didn't you? And I bet your ass has never even heard of Little Dogs on the Prairie.